God only knows what you've been through. God only knows what they say about you. God only knows how it's killing you. But there's a kind of love that God only knows. God only knows what you've been through. God only knows what they say about you. But God only knows the real you. There's a kind of love that God only knows.
Welcome to Season 2, Episode 77 of Your Journey Is Not Over. My name is Tanya Pearson Randolph. This is my own personal journey, and the expressions and opinions are of my own. I own all the rights to my personal journey, and to Your Journey Is Not Over. Neither are to be used, copied, or edited in any way without my consent. Jumping back into, again, January 13th, 2020. What at that time seemed like the longest, hardest day of my life. I've had longer and harder days since, with my late husband's diagnosis of bladder cancer and watching how quickly he deteriorated and then passed away, and left me here to pick up the pieces and continue on with my journey. I am and I've always been a very persistent, very determined person. That is, when I'm pushed in a corner and I have no choice. I'm not like most. I don't do drama. I don't entertain it. Don't got time for it. Don't like confrontations neither. It's not my nature. So again, when I am pushed into a corner and can't deem results, only then, if I want you, I'll get you legally. There's a process that one must go through. And again, I'm a very determined person. Once you hit my radar, God makes it possible for me to just be patient and to take all the right, appropriate legal steps. And then I hit my target. So with no luck, I then called outside my town, my county. It's not above nor below me to reach out to what others in my town like to call outsiders. To find an attorney that, as it's been put to me previously in the past, an attorney that don't owe Muncie, Indiana, Delaware County a damn thing. I've been known for that in a previous situation. Can't get anything legally done locally? Then I do go outside the box, so to speak, and I find someone who practices law with integrity and based on what's right and what's wrong, what's against the law and in violation of the laws on the books. Attorneys that went into their field and studied hard to become attorneys, to uphold the law, fight for the underdog, not to be part of the good old boy system. Those that want to fight for justice, not sweep it under the rug, and pick and choose who gets justice and who doesn't. Yes, there are still attorneys out there that haven't been sucked into the playbook of the good old boy system and that aren't fearful of backlash. Again, by the good old boy system. Again, yes, those attorneys still exist. You just have to trust and search until you find one. And that's exactly what I did. And yes, by the grace of God, I did find one. Again, in another city, another county. I was on a desperate search for answers, for justice, and for my mother's ashes. Not wanting those, being my aunt, my uncle, and that mortuary, to be able to get by with what they did. I couldn't stop what was already done to me. And well, if this could be done to me, then it could be done to anyone. This was proof that when greed and money are involved, and knowing and growing up with people of power, anything could be done. And guess what? It was. And overlooked by my local justice system. How did those seemingly get by with violating and breaking such laws? Cremating a human body, my mother's body, and there would be no consequences. And that is the most common question I do get asked. Simple. When you have money and power, and with those two combined, anyone can get by with anything. That's not a myth. In my experience, my journey, that's facts. Is that what our forefathers and all that fought to put laws on the books? You know, senators, congressmen, that make up our United States House of Representatives ever intended? Not in a million years. But sadly, it's what those of power in my city And I'm quite sure other cities as well have been reduced too. Our local justice system has been reduced to that. Again, you only get justice if you know the right people, have money, status, belong to the right organizations, I will just say. If this had happened to anyone, let's just say, and God forbid, I wouldn't wish this on anyone. Let's make that clear. But had this have happened to a person of status, their mother, it would have been all hands on deck getting answers and justice. Well, I'm just a middle class, hardworking taxpayer, and no, have never been known to want to climb social ladders, stroke those of power's ego. When I was a business owner, or was led to be a business owner, I should say, I gave back, I donated, I sponsored, I did volunteer work. I provided jobs for my community, and even then, I rarely went or participated in trying to climb social ladders. I was too busy, too invested in working and building my business, climbing my own ladder. So, no, never have I ever wanted to mingle with the higher ups, the politically connected, the ones that I knew years ago and I had met, such as chiefs, mayors, attorneys, were long gone. Well, let's just say a whole new breed came in. And well, our city hasn't been the same since. Not to get off track, but just recently, it was brought to light with Nancy Grace's help, of course, that there has been a child missing for 5 years in my city. Yes, you heard that right. And even though this child was reported missing several times over the course of 5 years, nothing was done. Mind you, it is a child that isn't related to anyone of power in my city. And had he have been, there would have been a search 5 years ago, an investigation, answers, justice. God bless that baby. Because no matter what family he's from, money or not, he deserves justice. And not for the good old boy system to sweep it under the rug. That is until it made headline news. Again, Nancy Grace. No one better to fight for answers and for justice for this beautiful baby. What I found strange, and this is not the only time that my city has been put under the spotlight, called on the red carpet, so to speak. By the way, the man in charge and whom plays God in my city doesn't like that. Again, outsiders to come in and question how he's running our city to hell. One case at a time, too. And so that man in charge, who makes all the decisions, again, like he's God, well, when shit hits the fan, so to speak, that man never does the interviews. Never. Just once, I would like to see him do an interview with Nancy Grace. I would love to see him squirm and account for the decisions that he alone makes. But instead, he sends in the hometown boy, the softer of the two, the one that's relatable, or as I like to say, the one that has a heart and a soul to do these interviews. When I watch the interview, I can't help but feel sorry for the second in command, whom was trying to account for and answer for decisions, cover up for the lack of movement for 5 years of this missing child. That would be hard for anyone to try and answer for, account for someone else's decisions. I mean, goodness. If you make these decisions, you overlook, you decide who gets justice in our city and who doesn't. Well, then, my opinion being, then be man enough to stand on and account for and answer for yourself and your decisions. Own them. Don't pass the baton off to our second in command and expect him to answer for you, your ways of justice, your decisions alone, your good old boy system. What is such a contradiction to prosecutors, district attorneys, state attorneys, and judges want criminals to be held accountable for their crimes. Mind you, those arrested and are being held accountable didn't have no connections, no power, no money to get or to buy their way out. So, yes, they're being held accountable. But those very same people of power aren't used to being held accountable. They don't have to be held accountable. The good old boy system makes sure of that. So, those again that hold others accountable are never held accountable for themselves. My opinion, it's like the pot calling the kettle black. Only difference, again, some folks aren't connected. so they have to pay the consequences. And those that are connected in whatever way, well, their wrongdoings get swept under the rug, overlooked. And God bless those that are like me, that rock the boat. I create waves. I want changes. By the way, I do rock the boat. I do make waves because I have no fear of water and because I know how to swim. This concludes my podcast for today. Please join me next Tuesday. Listen in and always remember your journey is not over. God bless.
God only knows what you've been through. God only knows what they say about you. God only knows how it's killing you. But there's a kind of love that God only knows. God only knows what you've been